Have you ever had that quiet thought, the one that sneaks in late at night, or in the middle of a conversation you're barely present for? The thought that says, I'm falling behind. Not in a dramatic, falling apart kind of way. More like a slow, invisible pull. Like time is moving just a little faster than you can match. Like everyone else is already sprinting, and you're still trying to find your shoes. You might be functioning. You might even look like you're doing well. But there's something inside you that keeps whispering, you should be further along by now. Maybe it shows up when you see people your age with stable careers, polished lives, clarity. Maybe it hits you when a friend tells you they're getting married and you still feel like you're figuring out how to be okay alone. Or maybe it creeps in when you open your phone and scroll past someone who seems to have it all. Success, peace, purpose, while you're still learning how to get through the week without mentally collapsing. And so you start measuring. You start counting the things you haven't done yet, the boxes left unchecked, the milestones missed. You tell yourself it's motivation, that you're just being honest with yourself. But underneath it all, what you're really doing is turning your life into a race. One you never meant to run, and one where the finish line keeps moving every time you get closer. No one told you how loud silence can be when you're comparing your pace to a world that never stops moving. You wake up already feeling behind. You go to sleep wondering if the day was enough. And in between, there's this constant pressure to be more, to do more, to prove that you're not falling apart, even if a part of you is. You might not say it out loud, not even to your closest people. But the thought is there, a quiet panic, a sense that your life is slipping through your hands while everyone else seems to know exactly what they're doing. And the hardest part? You've learned how to hide it well. You keep showing up. You keep moving forward. But it doesn't always feel like progress. Sometimes it just feels like motion, like staying busy enough so you don't have to sit with the fear that maybe you're lost. But what if you're not? What if being behind is a lie that's been quietly programmed into you? What if your pace, the one you keep judging, is not a flaw, but a reflection of something much deeper? That's where this story begins. Not with a list of goals, not with a plan to catch up, but with a question you may have been too exhausted to ask. Who told you that you're late? It doesn't always sound like pressure. Sometimes it sounds like discipline, like ambition, like holding yourself accountable. But beneath that language, beneath the polished productivity and structured goals, there's often something much quieter driving it. Fear. Fear of being left behind. Fear of not mattering. Fear that if you don't move fast enough, the window will close. That if you don't figure it out soon, you'll become one of those people who never did. Fear that you're already becoming that. And so, you perform. You move through life as if there's an audience watching. You build a version of yourself that looks steady from the outside, efficient, capable, composed, while inside, you're constantly recalculating. Constantly asking, is this enough? Am I enough? You keep going, not because you feel inspired, but because you're terrified to stop. Because you've been taught that stillness means failure, that slowing down is weakness, that rest must be earned, and clarity must come with results. But let's be honest, It doesn't feel like clarity. It feels like pressure dressed up as structure. It feels like ticking boxes you don't even remember choosing. You plan for the next 5 years while not knowing how to sit with yourself for 5 minutes. You set goals because that's what you're supposed to do, not because they come from something that feels true. And the most exhausting part? You start to lose track of where you end and the performance begins. You say yes to things that drain you. You chase what looks good instead of what feels right. You compare your insides to someone else's curated outside. Not because you're shallow, not because you're failing, but because this is how you were trained to survive. To be impressive, not present. To be productive, not peaceful. To be validated, not fulfilled. And somewhere along the way, that survival mode becomes your normal. You wake up in it. You live in it. And you wonder why everything feels so heavy, even when nothing's technically wrong. Because something is wrong. It's just not loud. It's not a crisis. It's not chaos. It's something more invisible, more difficult to name. You've disconnected from your own rhythm. And the longer you live out of sync with it, the easier it becomes to confuse constant motion with meaning. So, what do you do when the life you've built starts to feel like someone else's blueprint? What happens when you realize you've been running for so long, you're not even sure why anymore? Only that stopping feels dangerous, like everything might fall apart. If you did, it's a terrifying thought that your whole sense of forward motion has been shaped not by desire, not by purpose, but by avoidance. Avoidance of stillness, of uncertainty, of silence. Because silence is uncomfortable when you've been measuring your worth by your output. When your value has been tied to being seen as functional, productive, on track. When pausing feels like failing. And failing feels like disappearing. But here's the truth. Most of us are too scared to admit. Sometimes you need to disappear a little in order to come back to yourself. Not from the world, but from the noise inside your own mind. The voice that says you're behind. The one that compares your chapter 2 to someone else's highlight reel. The one that calls your gentleness weakness. That tells you urgency is a virtue. That love and success are only rewards for those who never stop grinding. You don't need that voice anymore. It helped you survive in a world that only respects visible progress. It kept you going when you were lost, confused, disconnected. But it's not where healing happens. It's not where meaning lives. Meaning lives in the slow moments, the ones where you're not trying to impress anyone. The mornings where you wake up and feel at peace, even if you're not winning. The conversations where you're not performing. The work that drains you less because it aligns with something real. The choices that don't look impressive but feel like home. We've been taught to fear stillness, to treat it like stagnation. But stillness is not the absence of growth. It's where growth begins. It's where you remember what matters when no one's watching. It's where you hear your own voice again. The one that's been drowned out by noise, algorithms, expectations. And no, it's not always clear at first. It's not dramatic or cinematic. It's often quiet, subtle, awkward, like relearning how to walk after running on autopilot for years. But that's the path back to yourself. Not a sprint, not a race, a slow, honest return. So maybe the question isn't what's next. Maybe it's what's mine. Not what looks good on a resume, not what makes sense to others, not what keeps you relevant in a world moving faster every day, but what feels true, what brings you back to yourself. Maybe it's a different pace, a smaller life, a deeper presence. Maybe you're not meant to catch up. Maybe you're meant to wake up, to stop measuring your worth in timelines, to stop treating your life like a delayed package that's supposed to arrive already complete. Because here's something no one tells you. You're allowed to change direction. You're allowed to slow down. You're allowed to not know. You're allowed to rebuild your definition of success, not from fear, but from resonance. And the moment you begin doing that, everything shifts. Not because life becomes easier, but because your life begins to feel like yours again. You stop running towards someone else's finish line. You stop apologizing for your pace. You stop performing for timelines that were never built for your kind of soul. And instead, you begin to move. Not faster, not louder, but more honestly, more fully, more here, because you're not lost, you're not late, you're not failing, you're just moving at a human pace. And that is more than enough.